With the 30th anniversary update, there was one particular patch note that went under the radar. Not surprising to be honest, given how much hype there was for the new Halo themed gear. Chromatic Fire now works with Stasis subclasses as intended. And you're right, it does. The long awaited Stasis Dragonfly is here, but there are some caveats to that, so let's take a quick look at what it works with, what it doesn't work with, and also how this could impact the end game. There's a few surprises here to be honest, with some combos that work great, some that are just too good for its own good, and ones that unfortunately just fall flat. The Crystalline Transistor perk on this Warlock exotic has been reworked with the latest update, and it now states that precision final blows with your kinetic weapon create an explosion in the element of your equipped subclass. This has always worked with light subclasses, and similar to that it will still create the delayed elemental explosion like it always has. This does sometimes appear to bug out, especially if you swap between weapons during encounters, and you'll often hear the audio effect but no actual explosion. Sometimes it'll also do the explosion, but if there's no enemies nearby for it to effect, it'll just sort of do a poof into thin air. Now with it working with the Stasis Shadebinder subclass, it triggers an icy stasis explosion that shatters the enemy you've killed with a precision final blow, and then applies the crystal stasis freeze effect to nearby enemies. In PvE, this will freeze adds momentarily, and it also seemingly disrupts enemies' attack patterns. This effect does only last for about 1 second though, and if you kill the frozen enemies from this explosion, you'll then trigger the status effects from any of the aspects or fragments you have equipped, like the Ice Flare bolts or the Whisper of Hedrons. It also works with the Explosive Well Maker mod to create solar elemental wells, which you can then set up further into a build if you wish, or just use them for the bonus ability energy they offer when collected. In PvP however, the stasis freeze falls in line with the recent stasis changes for the Crucible. Getting a precision final blow will trigger the stasis visual effects to any targets within a 5 meter radius, as well as deal a small amount of impact damage, but it actually doesn't freeze the target or even apply any stacks of the slow effect. They can move freely and use abilities as normal. It appears to be purely a visual annoyance with the minimal damage output from the explosion that may just put off your opponents momentarily whilst the stasis shards fall off, again after about 1 second. It is nowhere near on par with the best Chromatic Fire combo when paired with Firefly and a solar subclass, which is essentially a one-hit kill within 5 meters. Now let's get straight to the list of what Chromatic Fire doesn't work with. I've tested a lot of this over previous build videos and whatnot, so there's nothing really here that surprised me too much. Stasis Dragonfly might have you thinking it'd be cool to use with the Stasis HEADSTONE perk, and well, unfortunately it doesn't work. Even though VULPECULA is in the kinetic slot and HEADSTONE procs on precision final blows to make a stasis crystal, it won't work with Chromatic Fire. Likewise, the new hotness, or coldness for that matter, the Eyasluna 140 RPM stasis hand cannon doesn't work with Chromatic Fire. As it's a stasis elemental weapon, the game doesn't register this as a pure kinetic weapon and so won't trigger the stasis explosion. The same goes for Osmosis. If you've thrown a grenade and turned your kinetic weapon into a stasis elemental weapon, this won't trigger the stasis explosion at that point, but it will if you use the weapon as a kinetic without throwing a grenade or swapping between weapons to deactivate Osmosis. Now as to what the Stasis Dragonfly does work with, the list is kind of endless. Literally any and every pure kinetic weapon does work with it, but there are a few standouts I have to draw your attention to. Yes, any primary like the Chroma Rush Auto Rifle or the Multimac SMG will work, as will any exotic including Arbalist, Izzy and the Jade Rabbit. Things like Thorn and Malfeasance do also work, but their secondary effects can tamper with the stasis explosion. My favourite exotic though has to be Hawkmoon, more so because its Paracausal Shot perk is slept on in PvE. The ability to one-tap yellow bars and cause top tier damage on the final round can't be underestimated, and the added damage caused by Chromatic Fire is the cherry on top. Lastly though, and this one has me kind of scratching my head, is it good? Yes. Does it work? Yes. But it's kind of just too good. Firefly, whether it be on your Hung Jury, your PRAEDYTH'S Revenge, your Fatebringer, or yes, even your Ace, it's good. You'll get that double explosion as you'd expect, with the solar explosion of Firefly followed by the stasis pop. but the potency of the Firefly is just too much in the majority of circumstances in PvE. With both acting within the same radius, it's very rare you'll freeze anything for long enough to even notice it really worked. It'll still impact yellow bars and even bosses for that matter, and in PvP you'll probably stand the best chance of noticing this, to be honest. That being said, it's a hell of a lot of fun either way. Damage wise, the Stasis Chromatic Fire isn't going to change the world, but if you're looking for something a little bit different, it'll do bits in any of your favourite Stasis builds. We've been Stasised out of our minds here, so let's not break the habit. This Eyasluna hand cannon farm is right up your street, click it and see for yourself.